Welcome back to the Explainer. Today, we're tackling something pretty massive. I mean, think about how totally chaotic the world economy has been lately, right? From crazy supply chain crashes to overnight inflation. Yet the theories most of us learned on day one of Econ 101 to explain all this chaos, they're completely flat, literally. So our goal today is to finally move beyond those basic theories of the past and introduce a dynamic, multidimensional new model that actually reflects the chaotic world we're living in.
Okay, let's just dive right in by asking a genuinely provocative question. Is the classic economic model of supply and demand obsolete? We've all seen that century-old traditional graph, an X, Y, and two lines crossing. You know the one. It's simple, it's elegant, but does it actually describe how a modern, hyper-connected global economy functions? Keep that question in the back of your mind as we go.
First up, Section 1, the classic economic model.
Now, to understand where we're headed, we kind of have to know where we've been. When Adam Smith introduced the invisible hand back in 1776, the global economy moved at the speed of a horse-drawn carriage. Over the 1800s, mathematicians and economists like Kuno and Alfred Marshall managed to trap this whole concept into the two-dimensional graphical framework that we still memorize today.
And here it is, that elegant classic 2D model. You've got your downward-sloping blue demand curve, your upward-sloping red supply curve, and boom, right there in the middle, they intersect at a perfect state of rest, the equilibrium point. At this specific price, demand perfectly matches supply. It's a beautiful, tidy little picture. But let's be real, tidy rarely describes reality.
Moving on to Section 2, flaws of the static curve.
So the fatal flaw of the classic curve really comes down to two Latin words, ceteris paribus. It basically means all other things being equal. To make that neat 2D graph work, economists actually have to assume that while price and quantity change, literally everything else, technology, the weather, politics, hits the pause button. It's like trying to understand a super fast-paced basketball game by only looking at a still photograph. It freezes the whole world in a vacuum. But here's the crucial point. The real world never hits the pause button. Modern economies are chaotic, vibrating webs of constant motion. We're talking rapid technological leaps, overnight globalization shifts, sudden changes in consumer behavior, unexpected government policies. Relying on a static model that pretends these things just aren't happening simultaneously, it's really no longer sufficient for serious economic analysis.
Which brings us to Section 3, the demand and supply disks.
Enter the Demand and Supply Disks model, or the DSD model for short, created by Mario Arturo Ruiz Estrada. Notice the stark contrast here. Instead of flat static curves, we're now dealing with dynamic, multidimensional structures. The red disk on the left represents demand, the yellow on the right represents supply, and they physically interact. This isn't just some dry math equation, it's a continuously running engine. Let's break down exactly how it works. Let's zoom in on the red demand disk first. Price is no longer the sole dictator here. Actually, it's just one signpost on the perimeter. Final consumer demand is forged by this massive tug-of-war between income levels, changing preferences, sudden taxes, and, crucially, take a look at that infinity symbol at the bottom, infinite additional variables. Every single factor is constantly shifting in real time, pulling and pushing on the final demand right at the center of the disk. And over on the yellow supply disk, well, producers are playing an equally chaotic game. They aren't just looking at the final selling price. No way. They're juggling labor strikes, technological breakthroughs, complex regulations, all to achieve what's called intentional profit, which is just their expected revenues minus costs. Just like demand, the supply side is this infinity engine of changing variables, all interacting at once to determine the final supply.
All right, Section 4, everything in continuous motion.
It's time to say goodbye to ceteris paribus and say a big hello to the Omnia Mobilis Assumption. Translated, it simply means everything is moving. And this is the absolute bedrock of the discus model. It completely embraces the fact that the market is a living, breathing entity that never stops to take a breath. Nothing is ever truly equal or paused. Everything is interacting all the time. And because everything is moving, we also kind of have to throw out the idea of perfect equilibrium. That brings us to the Dynamic Imbalance State, or DIS. This concept essentially proves that a static resting place, where buyers and sellers just perfectly agree forever, is really just a theoretical classroom abstraction. In reality, markets operate under a state of constant, messy adjustment. There are always imbalances, and the market is always working to self-correct.
Up next, Section 5, the convergent point.
Now notice the purple horizontal bar connecting the two disks. This is the actual physical link between the central axis of final demand and final supply. It shows that these two chaotic spinning environments are locked in a state of continuous permanent negotiation, just constantly feeling out each other's imbalances.
So, as these two massive disks spin and adjust, there are these brief, fleeting moments where the variables relax just enough for the expectations of buyers and sellers to actually align. That spark, that's the convergent point of transaction. It's absolutely not a permanent equilibrium. Rather, it's a temporary flashpoint of agreement, like a single, quick handshake before the infinite variables inevitably shift again and the whole system moves on.
Finally, Section 6, a multidimensional reality. When we step back and compare these two paradigms side by side, the evolution is pretty striking. We're graduating from a 2D world focused only on price and quantity into a multi-dimensional arena handling infinite variables. We've essentially traded the frozen fantasy of ceteris paribus for the continuous motion of Omnia Mobilis, leaving behind the myth of a permanent equilibrium for the much more accurate reality of dynamic imbalance. To sum it all up, our source material notes that, quote, the DSD model provides a more flexible, dynamic, and realistic visualization of market interactions. Look, the traditional 2D model will always be a great starting point for beginners. It offers wonderful simplicity. But to truly navigate modern economics, we have to embrace models that reflect the messy, multidimensional truth of the world we actually live in.
I want to leave you with this final thought today. If the Omnia Mobilis assumption is true, if markets never truly rest, and equilibrium is just an illusion, how should you adapt your own business, investment, or career strategies to survive a world in permanent motion? What infinite variables are spinning on your disks right now? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.